All right, we are looking at the big trades case study. Let's scroll down and look at question number 1, and we'll start reading from there. Question 1. Over the 3-year period presented in Exhibit 1, WorldLink's return on equity is best described as trending higher, stable, or trending lower. So it looks like we're going to have to make some return on equity calculations over this 3-year period, and then kind of figure out whether it's going up or down or staying the same. All right, let's start reading right up at the top. Exhibit 1's right here, so this is what we're going to be using, but let's still read this paragraph for context. Richard Akibi works as an analyst at Big Trades, a private equity firm. For some time now, Big Trades has been following WorldLink Enterprises, a conglomerate based in the United States. Senior management at Big Trades is mulling the purchase of WorldLink. Akibi would like to establish the trends in ROE, that's what we're looking to do for our question, and also identify the forces behind the trends. To carry out DuPont analysis, he gathers the following financial information for the years 2014, I'll just say 15 and 16. So we're going to be using DuPont analysis basically to figure out the ROE, and so if we pull in, let's see, where's a good spot here? That'll work. So our ROE is going to equal net profit margin times asset turnover times financial leverage. So our net profit margin is going to be it's going to be net income over revenues. So we'll simply just have to divide net income by revenues each year to get that number. Asset turnover, it looks like, is given. So we'll just be able to plug that number in. And then assets over equity will be our financial leverage, so that's also given. So we pretty much just need to figure out the net profit margin for each year and then multiply that by the asset turnover and financial leverage for each year, and then figure out the trend. So I'm going to scroll down to pull this last part in. So we've got our numbers here. So in 2014, we got our net profit margin here, and then we're just taking the numbers from the table here to get 21.55. Then the next year we're at 21.48 and 21.51%. So these numbers are all very close, so we would say that the return on equity has been B, stable. All right, question 2. Based on conclusion 2, BMG's past earnings were most likely overstated, understated, or fairly stated. So we've got conclusion 2 right here. We left off quite a ways up though, so let's go ahead and make sure we read everything to make sure we didn't miss anything. So we left off at Exhibit 1, so let's start here. After successfully conducting the DuPont analysis, Akibi is strongly convinced that his firm could improve the ROE even without the need for a sweeping operational overhaul. In his report, Akibi mentions that remarkable growth in ROE could be achieved by divesting segments that were generating the lowest returns on capital employed. WorldLink has 3 major segments: pharmaceuticals, medical equipment, and outpatient services. In 2016, segment IBIT margins were 10% for pharmaceuticals, 9% for medical equipment, and 6% for outpatient services. Exhibit 2 presents further segment information. We've got an exhibit here with that segment info. Having been impressed with Akibi's work on WorldLink, his supervisor, Sarah Hassan, has asked him to analyze BMG, Inc. BMG reported impressive earnings growth last year, but so it looks like we may be getting to some important information here. We're looking at BMG earnings growth. But Hassan is in doubt about the sustainability of the results. She directs Akibi to focus on BMG's financial reporting quality and earnings quality. Following weeks of intensive analysis of the company's financial statements, Akibi comes up with a set of conclusions as follows. Conclusion 1. BMG's financial statements generally appear to be in compliance with generally accepted accounting principles. However, there's evidence of increasing the company's reported performance and financial position in the current period. Conclusion 2, BMG, this is what we're looking at here. BMG has large accruals for losses related to litigation and environment. So another word for accruals is kind of to think about it as accumulation. Since they have accumulated, that means that they were not recognizing these losses in past periods. They're accruing these losses in litigation environment, but haven't been recognizing them on the income statement. So if some of those losses had been recognized on the income statement in previous periods, that would have lowered earnings, and therefore we can kind of conclude that delaying these expenses to now has likely been overstating past earnings. So we'll go with A, overstated. Question 3. Based on conclusion 3, BMG's reported earnings for the current period are most likely unsustainable but high quality, sustainable but low quality, or unsustainable and low quality. So right off the bat, we can go ahead and rule out A. Unsustainable but high quality are not going to ever go together. If the earnings are unsustainable, then they're going to be low quality earnings. So for that reason, we can cross off A right away. So the nice thing about doing that is we basically just need to figure out whether these earnings that they reported are sustainable or unsustainable. So we left off at conclusion 2. All we have to read here, it looks like, is this conclusion 3 statement. A significant portion of the reported earnings for the current period came from the sale of an idle office block at the heart of New York. So it's a significant portion of the reported earnings came from the sale of their office block. This is going to be earnings that is not really related to their normal operations, and so they're not going to be selling another office block every quarter, every year. So this is kind of a one-time event, which is going to mean it's unsustainable for them to have earnings that high in the future. So sustainable earnings are going to be when we have the majority or all of our earnings from our normal operations or whatever widgets or service that we're selling or services that we're providing, whereas unsustainable is going to be a similar situation to this, where we kind of have a one-off bump in earnings for some reason. So we'll go with answer C, unsustainable and low quality. Question 4, based on conclusion 4, BMG's earnings for the current period are most likely understated, overstated, or fairly stated. We left off at conclusion 3, so it looks like all we have to do is read this last statement here. Conclusion 4, BMG most likely understated the fair value of assets when recording the acquisition of ABC last year. This resulted in a higher goodwill amount. No goodwill impairment charges have been taken since the acquisition. So if we did take impairment, this is going to be something that would have lowered our earnings. So by not taking any impairment charges, we're basically not taking that expense, and so we're showing higher earnings than if we took that goodwill impairment. So therefore, our earnings are going to be higher than they maybe should have or would have been stated under this, so they will be B, overstated.